In November 1975, in Leningrad, I had to go through another test. There were 6 matches, so 7 teams, 6 matches, and in 4 of these matches, I had to face Anatoly Karpov, Viktor Korchnoi, and Vasily Smyslov.
You are listening to Kasparovchess.com podcast, episode 6.
In November 1975, in Leningrad, I had to go through another test to lead our team in this Pioneer versus Grandmaster tournament. It's a tournament of chess hopes, as it was also called. It was our second experience in this final. First one was 1974. Then I was playing at board 2. And I still cannot forget the moment where in the first round where we faced Riga. And in these matches, it was a grandmaster, captain of the team, played simultaneous exhibition against the opposite team. And our captain was Vladimir Bagirov. He faced 7 players from Riga, so six boys and 1 girl in every team. And I remember Mikhail Tal shaking my hand, or I shook his hand, you name it, but it was an electrifying moment. It probably played a role for my decision in the future to take part in many events of the same type, but as a captain. It's, I guess, larger than the impression of these feelings. I thought it was my direct duty to become a captain of Baku team, and I did it 3 times, in 1981, in 1985, and in 1987. I won all 3 competitions among captains, but our team was not performing so well in first 2 events. That's why we only got second place, so silver medals as a combined result. But in 1987 in Baku, we actually did it. So I won very convincingly the competition among grandmasters, and our team did well enough to make sure that our combined score was sufficient to win the tournament. But let's go back to Leningrad. There were 6 matches, so 7 teams, 6 matches, and in 4 of these matches, I had to face with our team from Baku, Anatoly Karpov, Viktor Korchnoi, and Vasily Smyslov. It's another 2 players who are also very strong grandmaster, Gennady Kuzmin, and a master from Almaty, Katalimov. In the first round, I played against Vasily Smyslov, who crushed our team 7-0. But in our game, I got significant advantage in the opening, and I thought I was close, but then Smyslov found a very creative way of creating counterplay, and the opposition was still better. I missed a way to increase my advantage, and then I'm being upset that the advantage is just slipped away. I made another big mistake and lost. Smyslov won very convincingly. And as I recall, it was the last time I cried after the game because I was so upset that I missed my chance and our team was crushed. The second game, we played Almaty, and I eventually won Katalimov, though not during the game, but in the adjournment when captains had to award the results. And I was awarded a win in the end game. And the third round, I played Lev Pologaevsky. I played him already a year earlier in Moscow at our first event. And I lost not badly, but without much of a fight. So I tried to create some complications, but it was calmly refuted by Pologaevsky. But in Leningrad, he had to spend so much time at my board that at one point, and it doesn't happen often, all his clocks were ticking. So he had to spend, I think, up to 40 minutes considering how to escape at board one in our game. So he just let us other games, without any attention. And then after he managed to escape, and actually I probably made a mistake by offering a draw in the bad endgame, it was not a good sign for our team. I had to stay at the board, keeping pressure on Pologaevsky, because after being relieved from this challenge at board one, he won remaining 6 games with almost no effort. But the big day came at around 4. I had to face Anatoly Karpov.
I can say that if I want to make draw with white, then I can make it to be sure for 95%. 5% just if I make mistake in one move.
Similar story. So my teammates offered little resistance, and Karpov quickly, crushed them. There was only one game left at board 2, but he had such a comfortable position with huge positional advantage and no risk. So that's the dream for a grandmaster playing a clock simul. But our game, that was a serious challenge. It was not just my first game against Anatoly Karpov. It was also the first game I employed neither, my favorite opening. Though I had plenty of experience with different kinds of Sicilians. I played Rauser, but also Scheveningen, and that was influence of my first coach in the Pioneer Palace, Oleg Privorotsky. And I like this kind of positions. But this time, following Nikitin's advice, I decided to play neither, and in case of most aggressive move 6 bishop g5, I wanted to go for Pologaevsky's variation. It's a suicidal line today in computer chess, but in 1975 it was still considered to be a risky but plausible choice. And Karpov selected his favorite move, bishop e2, instead of going in complications. And I moved into another line that Karpov played against Pologaevsky in his quarterfinal match a year earlier. And I had very decent position after the opening and played quite creatively. And to my surprise, probably to Karpov's surprise, it's hard to believe, but outplayed the world champion. So I got a very, very good, comfortable position. And Karpov had to sort of find ways of creating some chances, because I had strong position in the center, and his pieces were hanging. He was visually uncomfortable. And there were mistakes, of course, in the game. And at one point, I could have a very significant advantage. But still, after all this, all that happened, I had a decent position. But then made a mistake, a serious mistake at it's 2 moves actually, move 26. And then move 27. And Karpov could have won a pawn, but he blundered. He just, as a matter of fact, he didn't see how he could refute my blunder. And we had a very unusual position. So he had 2 bishops, powerful bishops, and I had 2 powerful bishops. He had a pass pawn, but I controlled one of the files, E file, and clearly his pieces were not sort of as well coordinated as mine. And then at move 29 and 30, I decided to go for kill, and blundered a relatively simple but still very nice refutation. And if I played quietly, simply protecting my pawn on f7 by playing 29 rook e7, I would have put Karpov under serious pressure. probably he would have still won the game because I was facing world champion. It's just one-on-one. This is the amazing moment. But I couldn't find the right move. It's also part of my nature, so just to go for an aggressive continuation instead of just simply trying to protect your only weakness, which was pawn on f7, and then just gradually improve the position. Push the king on g7, then play f6, and white had very little to do because my two bishops they were much better coordinated with my rook, and appearance of this rook on e1 it was eventually inevitable. So the game was lost, but it was a big fight, and it had big impression on a lot of people. I was proud that I could give a good game to a new world champion. Karpov was just proclaimed world champion in April 1975, but still I was upset because I was already -1, and in the next round I couldn't play well. It was just a very bleak game with Kuzmin. I just didn't want to lose. I drew with white, but it was a very uneventful game. But in the last round, I played Viktor Korchnoi. And again, it's probably symbolic that if it was Karpov, this is the first big game that's of our endless encounters. I played neither. Against Viktor Korchnoi, I played King's Indian. So neither from King's Indian. There's two of my most famous trademarks in chess theory, in chess openings. And those were two openings that were employed against two great Ks in 1975. So Korchnoi played a rare move order against Sami Schlein in the King's Indian. The idea is just that the black tries to create counterplay in the center or queenside without even just castling. And Korchnoi was not paying much attention to these details. And when he saw that he could take a pawn on d4, he just took it very quickly, just thinking, okay, pawn is a pawn. And I was so happy because now I had my bishop on g7 working. And I never thought that losing a pawn was just, was a big deal. Actually, it was interesting difference in the way we both evaluated the position, and that's part of our style. Korchnoi always liked material, and I always liked the initiative. And even in our first game, so he was number 2 player in the world, and I was a 12-year-old rising star, a canon master. This difference, was on display. It started a conflict. White had a pawn, black had excellent counterplay. Right now, I still think I was right, and it's the idea of take on d4 was not a good one, especially because white had a few other options of fighting this knight on d4, just putting knight on b3 or e2. And then Korchnoi surprised me also by move g4. It's again typical Korchnoi, so this is no prejudices, attacking the knight, preventing f5, and he's not afraid of queen h4 check. Black still had decent game, even without queens. I could feel that my initiative was more than enough. And the critical moment was at move 22, when position was probably roughly equal, but Korchnoi, as it happens in the simultaneous, played quickly king d2, very natural move, and then it allowed me to play b5. That's an interesting visual blunder. It's an optical illusion, to be more precise, because white had so many attacks on b5 square. 2 pawns and knight and bishop. You have four white pieces attacking b5 square. So you don't expect that black pawn from b7 can ever move. But because of white king on d2, it's not all of these attacks. They have the same power, because if white bishop leaves, then knight takes f3 and knight takes g1. So that's what happened in the game. So the Black immediately broke through. So b5, I was so happy at this moment. And then Korchnoi sank in a very deep thoughts. Our position was, dangerous is to be understatement. It's probably lost. But then I got nervous. Imagine just being so close. It's a winning position. But then what was in my mind, can I actually play a few more moves? Because after move 45, there was a time control, I think 2 hours, 15 minutes for 45 moves. After 45 moves, the game can be adjourned, and then our captain would definitely award a win for me. This thought was a betrayal, because it somehow paralyzed me, and I missed few moments where I could probably finish Korchnoi off without even waiting for Vladimir Bagirov to enter this fray on my behalf. So I missed a couple of really big moments of deciding the game, but until move 38, it was still fine. And if I would have played Rook e4 at move 38, then most likely the game would end up with Bagirov and Korchnoi arguing about it, and I doubt that Korchnoi, with all his competitiveness, could actually resist Bagirov's claims that the game was lost. But I played terrible move c3, which is just hard to explain. Just putting the pawn, just on c3, blocking the bishop, and then the game was already a draw, and Korchnoi so easily created just a counterplay to neutralize my extra pawn. There was a draw. I finished with -1, not what I expected. But when top players, captains asked about their impressions, about the young opponents, and what they thought about them, Karpov, Korchnoi, and Polugayevsky picked up me, just recognizing that those were tough games, and I had a real good future. So that was the first moment of meeting the greats, and quite a few already thought that this famous picture of me sitting opposite Karpov could be a beginning of a new lasting duel. But I guess nobody could imagine that it will be not just a chess duel. It will be beginning of chess rivalry, unparalleled in the history.